Question 258. When you apply a lock at a parent scope, all resources within that scope inherit the same lock. Even resources you add later inherit the same parent lock. The most unrestrictive lock in the inheritance takes precedence. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is it's no. Explanation. As an administrator, you can lock an Azure subscription, resource group or resource to protect them from accidental user deletion and modifications. The lock overrides any user permissions. When you apply a lock at a parent scope, all resources within that scope inherit the same lock. Even resources you add later inherit the same parent lock. The most restrictive lock in the inheritance takes precedence. If you have a delete lock on a resource and attempt to delete its resource group, the feature blocks the whole delete operation. Even if the resource group or other resources in the resource group are unlocked, deletion doesn't happen. You never have a partial deletion. When you cancel an Azure subscription, a resource lock doesn't block the subscription cancellation. Azure preserves your resources by deactivating them instead of immediately deleting them. Azure only deletes your resources permanently after a waiting period. Next question. You can link virtual networks together by using virtual network dash, and the options are A. Connectivity, B. Peering, C. Seeding, D. Cloning. And the correct answer is option B. Peering. Explanation. You can link virtual networks together by using virtual network peering. Peering enables resources in each virtual network to communicate with each other. These virtual networks can be in separate regions, which allows you to create a global interconnected network through Azure. User-defined routes (UDR) are a significant update to Azure's virtual networks that allows for greater control over network traffic flow. This method allows network administrators to control the routing tables between subnets within a VNet, as well as between VNets. Next question. Which of the following is not a valid way to connect your on-premise data center to Azure? And the options are A. Point-to-site virtual private networks, B. Site-to-site virtual private networks, C. Azure Express Route, D. Network virtual appliances. And the correct answer is option D. Network virtual appliances. Explanation. Azure Virtual Networks enable you to filter traffic between subnets by using the following approaches. Number 1. Network security groups. A network security group is an Azure resource that can contain multiple inbound and outbound security rules. You can define these rules to allow or block traffic based on factors such as source and destination IP address, port, and protocol. Number 2. Network virtual appliances. A network virtual appliance is a specialized VM that can be compared to a hardened network appliance. A network virtual appliance carries out a particular network function, such as running a firewall or performing wide area network optimization. Azure Virtual Networks enable you to link resources together in your on-premises environment and within your Azure subscription. In fact, you can create a network that spans both your local and cloud environments. There are 3 mechanisms for you to achieve this connectivity. Number 1. Point-to-site virtual private networks. The typical approach to a virtual private network connection is from a computer outside your organization back into your corporate network. In this case, the client computer initiates an encrypted VPN connection to connect that computer to the Azure Virtual Network. Number 2. Site-to-virtual private networks. A site-to-site VPN links your on-premises VPN device or gateway to the Azure VPN gateway in a virtual network. In fact, the devices in Azure can appear as being on the local network. The connection is encrypted and works over the internet. Number 3. Azure Express Route for environments where you need greater bandwidth and even higher levels of security. Azure Express Route is the best approach. Express Route provides a dedicated private connectivity to Azure that doesn't travel over the internet. Next question. All data that is copied to an Azure storage account is backed up automatically to another Azure data center. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is, it's no. Explanation. Automatically is the key word in this question that most people miss. Data is not backed up automatically to another Azure data center, although it can be backed up depending on the replication option configured for the account. Locally redundant storage is the default, which maintains 3 copies of the data in the data center. Geo-redundant storage has cross-region application to protect against regional outages. Data is replicated synchronously 3 times in the primary region, then replicated asynchronously to the secondary region. Next question. Which of the following doesn't affect a storage account billing? And the options are A. Region, B. Account type, C. Access tier, D. Data egress outside a region, E. Redundancy, F. Data ingress within the same AZ. And the correct answer is option F. Data ingress within the same AZ. Explanation. An Azure storage account contains all of your Azure storage data objects, including blobs, file shares, queues, tables, and disk. The storage account provides a unique namespace for your Azure storage data that's accessible from anywhere in the world over HTTP or HTTPS. Data in your storage account is durable and highly available, secure, and massively scalable. Azure storage bills based on your storage account uses. All objects in a storage account are built together as a group. The storage costs are calculated according to the following factors. Number 1. Region refers to the geographical region in which your account is based. Number 2. Account type refers to the type of storage account you are using. Number 3. Access tier refers to the data uses pattern you have specified for your general purpose V2 or blob storage account. Number 4. Capacity refers to how much of your storage account allotment you are using to store data. Number 5. Redundancy determines how many copies of your data are maintained at one time and in what locations. Number 6. Transactions refer to all read and write operations to Azure storage. Number 7. Data egress refers to any data transferred out of an Azure region when the data in your storage account is accessed by an application that isn't running in the same region. You are charged for data egress. For information about using resource groups to group your data and services in the same region to limit egress charges, see what is an Azure resource group. The Azure storage pricing page provides detailed pricing information based on account type, storage capacity, replication, and transactions. The data transfer pricing details provided detailed pricing information for data egress. You can use the Azure storage pricing calculator to help estimate your cost. Next question. A company can extend a private cloud by adding its own physical servers to the public cloud. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is it's no. Explanation. You cannot add physical servers to the public cloud. You can only deploy virtual servers in the public cloud. You can extend a private cloud by deploying virtual servers in a public cloud. This would create a hybrid cloud. Next question. To utilize a hybrid cloud model, you must deploy resources to the public cloud while having some resources on-prem. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is it's yes. Explanation. A hybrid cloud is a combination of a private cloud and public cloud. Therefore, to create a hybrid cloud, you must deploy resources to a public cloud. Next question. Dash are often used to create solutions by using a microservice architecture. This architecture is where you break solutions into smaller, independent pieces. And the options are A. Containers, B. Functions, C. Modules, D. Kubernetes. And the correct answer is option A. Containers. Explanation. Containers are often used to create solutions by using a microservice architecture. This architecture is where you break solutions into smaller independent pieces. For example, you might split a website into a container hosting your front end, another hosting your back end, and a third for storage. This split allows you to separate portions of your app into logical sections that can be maintained, scaled, or updated independently. Imagine your website backend has reached capacity, but the front end and storage aren't being stressed. You could: Number 1. Scale the backend separately to improve performance. Number 2. Decide to use a different storage service. Number 3. Replace the storage container without affecting the rest of the application. Next question. You have a workload in blob storage that processes large data sets that need to be stored in a cost-effective way, while additional data is being gathered for processing. Which of the following access tiers would make the most sense? And the options are A. Hot, B. Cool, C. Archive, D. Efficient. And the correct answer is option B. Cool. Explanation. The keyword here is cost-effective. When your data is stored in an online access tier, either hot or cool, users can access it immediately. The hot tier is the best choice for data that is in active use, while the cool tier is ideal for data that is accessed less frequently, but that still must be available for reading and writing. Example user scenarios for the hot tier include: Number 1. Data that is in active use or is expected to be read from and written to frequently. Number 2. Data that is staged for processing and eventual migration to the cool access tier. User scenarios for the cool access tier include: Number 1. Short-term data backup and disaster recovery. Number 2. Older data sets that aren't used frequently but are expected to be available for immediate access. Number 3. Large data sets that need to be stored in a cost-effective way while additional data is being gathered for processing. Next question. You have deployed a new Azure SQL database in a VNet and want to restrict the ports as well as allow or deny communication based on the connection state of the flow record. What should you use? And the options are A. An Azure Network Security Group, B. An Azure Active Directory role, C. An Azure DNS record, D. An Azure Express route. And the correct answer is option A. An Azure Network Security Group NSG. Explanation. Restricting internet access to your VMS in Azure can be achieved by making use of Azure Network Security Groups. We can use an Azure Network Security Group to filter network traffic to and from Azure resources in an Azure virtual network. A network security group contains security rules that allow or deny inbound network traffic to or outbound network traffic from several types of Azure resources. For each rule, you can specify source and destination, port and protocol. Next question. Which of the following is designed for enterprise big data analytics and includes a hierarchical namespace to blob storage? And the options are A. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, B. Azure Files, C. Azure Stack Edge, D. Azure Data Box Gateway. And the correct answer is option A. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Explanation. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 is a set of capabilities dedicated to big data analytics built on Azure Blob Storage. Data Lake Storage Gen 2 converges the capabilities of Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 1 with Azure Blob Storage. Designed for enterprise big data analytics. Data Lake Storage Gen 2 makes Azure Storage the foundation for building enterprise data lakes on Azure. Designed from the start to service multiple petabytes of information while sustaining hundreds of gigabytes of throughput. Data Lake Storage Gen 2 allows you to easily manage massive amounts of data. A fundamental part of Data Lake Storage Gen 2 is the addition of a hierarchical namespace to blob storage. The hierarchical namespace organizes objects or files into a hierarchy or directories for efficient data access. Data Lake Storage Gen 2 builds on blob storage and enhances performance, management, and security in the following ways. Number 1. Performance is optimized because you don't need to copy or transform data as a prerequisite for analysis. Compared to the flat namespace on blob storage, the hierarchical namespace greatly improves the performance of directory management operations, which improves overall job performance. Number 2. Management is easier because you can organize and manipulate files through directories and subdirectories. Number 3. Security is enforceable because you can define POSIX permissions on directories or individual files. Next question. There is no programmatic access to the blob, queue, table, and file service in Azure, though you can access VMS using API calls. Is it true or false? And the correct answer is it's false. Explanation. The REST APIs for the Microsoft Azure Storage Service offer programmatic access to the blob, queue, table, and file services in Azure or in the development environment via the storage emulator. All storage services are accessible via REST APIs. Storage services may be accessed from within a service running in Azure or directly over the internet from any application that can send an HTTP or HTTPS request and receive an HTTP or HTTPS response. Important: the Azure Storage Services support both HTTP and HTTPS. However, using HTTPS is highly recommended. Storage account. All access to a storage services takes place through the storage account. The storage account is the highest level of the namespace for accessing each of the fundamental services. It is also the basis for authorization. The REST APIs for storage services expose the storage account as a resource. Next question. Which of the following would be ideal to store flexible datasets like user data for web applications, address books, device information, or other types of metadata your service requires? And the options are A. Azure Queue Storage, B. Azure Table Storage, C. Azure SQL Database, D. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. And the correct answer is option B, Azure Table Storage. Explanation. Azure Table Storage is a service that stores non-relational structured data, also known as structured NoSQL data, in the cloud, providing a key or attribute stored with a schemaless design. Because table storage is schemaless, it's easy to adapt your data as the needs of your application evolve. Access to table storage data is fast and cost-effective for many types of applications and is typically lower in cost than traditional SQL for similar volumes of data. You can use table storage to store flexible datasets like user data for web applications, address books, device information, or other types of metadata your service requires. You can store any number of entities in a table, and a storage account may contain any number of tables up to the capacity limit of the storage account. Table storage contains the following components. Note: the Cosmos DB Table API offers higher performance and availability, global distribution, and automatic secondary indexes. It is also available in a consumption-based serverless mode. There are some feature differences between Table API in Azure Cosmos DB and Azure Table Storage. For more information, see Azure Cosmos DB Table API. Next question. Azure Synapse Analytics is an analytics service that brings together data integration, enterprise data warehousing, and big data analytics. Is it yes or no? And the correct answer is it's yes. Explanation. Azure Synapse Analytics was previously called Azure SQL Data Warehouse. Azure Synapse Analytics is a limitless analytics service that brings together data integration, enterprise data warehousing, and big data analytics. It gives you the freedom to query data on your terms using either serverless or dedicated resources at scale. Azure Synapse brings these worlds together with a unified experience to ingest, explore, prepare, manage, and serve data for immediate BI and machine learning needs. Thank you for watching this video. Buy our AZ 900 premium questions with 50% off. Check link in the description.